Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So, today we are going to talk about exits and strategy in Ukraine. Because I keep hearing this term pop up. And initially, I found it a little humorous in a weird way because it was just commentators. And I understood why they were asking the question, and I didn't think it was that big of a deal. But I recently heard a military analyst ask this question. So now we definitely have to talk about it because it made me realize how much the last 50 years of U.S. foreign policy has skewed the way Americans look at war. That question is, what's the exit strategy for Ukraine? I get it. I understand where this question comes from. Because for half a century, that was a question that should have been asked about every U.S. military operation. And for the last 2 decades, it's really only been the United States making moves on the international scene, particularly those that involve a lot of military force. And that's a question that has to be asked because the U.S. is engaging in adventurism, because it's a U.S. offensive. This is a defensive war. There is no exit strategy. That's not a thing here. That doesn't exist. It's a defensive war. You win or you lose. That's it. Those are the only 2 options. This wasn't an elective war. It's not a war where U.S. troops went in and, destabilized a government or replaced it, and now they're trying to figure out how to, extract themselves from the situation they've created. It's nothing like that. This is a defensive war. Another country, Russia, decided to make a move on the international scene using military force. They have to have an exit strategy. More importantly, this isn't a U.S. war. The U.S. doesn't get to make this call. The closest thing you could have to an exit strategy is the moment when Ukraine decides to start looking at peace options. The U.S. can't get involved in that. I know there's a lot of people that are saying the United States should negotiate with Russia directly. They are 100% wrong. There is no way the U.S. can do that. Not and maintain the premise that it set out with. This isn't a U.S. war. The U.S. is backing up a country that was invaded with supplies. That's what's happening. If the United States starts telling Ukraine, well, maybe you let them keep Donbass. Why don't you just go ahead and draw that comic with the world powers sitting there carving up the globe? Because that's what it turns into. It's a defensive war for Ukraine. Ukraine gets to decide when they are looking at peace, whether they're willing to cede territory, whether they're willing to give up Crimea. These are all questions for the Ukrainian people, not for people in D.C. If it turns into the United States saying, you have to accept these conditions, these peace conditions, everything that the U.S. did here was for nothing. Because right now, as it stands, without the United States doing this, Russia is engaging in imperialism, and the United States, for once, is on the right side of things when it comes to the ideological aspects of it. If they start putting conditions on the maps, and saying, oh, well, you're going to give this other major power, you're going to give them this land. The U.S. is now engaged in that same kind of sphere of influence, imperialism. One of the things that has caused so many problems on this planet. There isn't an exit strategy. It doesn't exist because it's a defensive war. If you're talking about when it comes time for peace, that decision is made in Kyiv, not in D.C. The U.S. shouldn't have anything to do with that. We supply them. We keep their war running as long as they want to fight it. We don't press them to fight. We don't press them to quit. That's it. This is something for the Ukrainian people to decide. Not pundits on TV. Just because the war isn't getting good enough ratings, I don't know that that's a good enough reason to start backing imperialist thought processes or selling out people who are fighting, trying to liberate their hometown. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.